March 26, 2024. I go to the theater to watch the newest DreamWorks movie, Kung Fu Panda 4. I love the Kung Fu Panda franchise, and I grew up with DreamWorks movies. And while the third film was disappointing, the recently released Puss in Boots: The Last Wish gave me hope that DreamWorks had learned from their mistakes. But one thing from that experience did stick with me, and it had nothing to do with the movie itself. It was a trailer for a new DreamWorks film titled The Wild Robot. I was immediately hooked. I kept up with every detail that came out before release. I even purchased the book it was based on, which I hadn't even heard of previously. Fast forward to September 28th, 2024. I go to the theater to watch the newest DreamWorks movie, The Wild Robot. And I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. If you haven't seen The Wild Robot yet, watch it immediately. It's already on some streaming platforms and still showing in certain theaters at the time of me recording this. It is the most beautiful movie I've ever had the pleasure of watching. It's funny, heartfelt, and dramatic. The story is simple yet powerful, and every single scene is absolutely gorgeous. Now for this review, I've also read the first book in the Wild Robot trilogy. I won't be mentioning it much though, because while the story is largely the same, the direction and even the method in which it plays out is very different, with both being enjoyable for different reasons. With all that being said, here's my review of the 2024 film adaptation of The Wild Robot. This is ROSM7134, or ROS for short, a helper robot created by a company called Universal Dynamics. After a typhoon causes a cargo ship to crash, Roz ends up on the island, and immediately it's clear she wasn't made for this environment. While trying to look for a customer, she's attacked several times and is exposed to both the beauty and cruelty of nature. Since she can't communicate with the animals, she activates her learning mode, where she lays dormant for about 9 days and picks up on the animals' language. Still, the animals don't trust Roz though. After realizing no one ordered her, she attempts to activate her return transmitter in order to be returned to the factory. After a lightning strike and raccoon hijinks though, she's attacked by a bear, and this scene is amazing. Up to this point, Roz has been tested in many ways, but it hasn't been anything she couldn't handle. Immediately it's clear that this is different though. Roz is hit by the bear, and the expression she makes shows us how dangerous the situation is. Everyone knows at this point this movie is visually stunning, but an aspect of its visuals that may fly under the radar is the incredible character acting. Roz is a robot. Robots are known for their inherent lack of emotion. Other films work around this by playing into the lack of expression. On the other hand, The Wild Robot actually gives Roz a ton of character through her expressions. This slight head tilt makes it clear to us that Roz is curious and doesn't understand the danger she's in, and the aforementioned expression after being hit portrays genuine fear. She escapes the bear but falls down a cliff. She falls straight into a tree with a bird's nest, killing both the bird and all the eggs except one. Roz holds onto the egg, and after it hatches, it thinks Roz is its mother. And this is a scene that seems to have stuck in many people's minds, and for good reason. It's beautiful, powerful, and the callback to it later ensures it sticks in your memory. What was most impressive to me, however, was the careful balance it strikes between emotion and comedy, and this is a balance the movie keeps throughout its runtime. Some animated kids' films fail to do this by undercutting what should have been a dramatic scene with an unnecessary joke. Others take themselves far too seriously during dramatic scenes, completely destroying any kind of immersion because nothing feels earned. The moments before the egg hatches are comedic, with Roz trying to prevent the egg from breaking. After it hatches, there's this beautiful shot where it seems like something's changed in Roz, only for the moment to be cut short by Roz immediately going back to her default programming. Before Roz can activate her return transmitter though, it's broken by the gosling.
Taking care of him is your task now.
Task acquired. Return mode delayed. A Rosm always completes its task.
After speaking to an opossum named Pinktail, she receives a new task, raising the baby gosling. In order to succeed in this task, the gosling needs to eat, swim, and learn to fly by fall in order to migrate for the winter. Roz employs the help of a local goose expert, Fink the Fox, voiced by Pedro Pascal. And while we're on the topic of voice acting, Roz is voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, who does a phenomenal job. She has a genuine talent as a voice actor. Even knowing that she was playing Roz, I didn't hear her in this performance at all. In some animated films, it can be hard to separate the actor from their character. But Lupita Nyong'o does an excellent job keeping the viewer immersed, which is especially difficult considering the fact that she's playing a robot. Fink helps Roz feed the gosling and suggests she build some sort of shelter for it. He explains that here on the island, everyone is just fighting to survive, so the gosling will be in constant danger. He also tells Roz not to tell the gosling how his family died just yet. Roz builds a dome, which in the book is called the nest. Speaking of differences between the movie and book, this line,
"But you can call me Roz,"
has a completely different meaning in the two mediums. In the book, Roz simply introduces herself as such, but in the movie, Roz only tells Brightbill that he can call her that, which clues us in during the ending that she still has her memories. More on that later though. For now, Fink's just giving the gosling a name, something Roz initially struggles to do. Eventually though, she decides on the name Brightbill. It's now summer and Bright Bill has grown up. He's now learning to swim and even meets other geese. Unfortunately, because he's
different.
He's bullied by the other geese. Roz attempts to rescue him, but as she does so, he's attacked by a fish named Rockmouth. She rescues him, but it costs her one of her legs, and afterward, the other geese reveal to Bright Bill that his mother was killed by Roz. The two have a falling out because of this, and afterward, Roz finds a robot graveyard, discovering her origins and purpose. She puts together one of the robots and names it Rummage, and if this doesn't make her growth from the start of the film evident, the following scene most certainly does.
Can you explain again what we are doing?
I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
This emotional breakdown Roz has is understandable, but also surprising. She's changed a lot since we first met her. She has actual feelings and seems to care for Bright Bill beyond simply completing her task. And yet again, this is a scene that nails that balance between comedy and emotion. It's revealed that Roz has been rewriting her code in order to accomplish her task, and she's labeled as defective. Rummage gives Roz her return transmitter and tells her she needs to be returned to the factory. Winter is coming though, and time is running out for Bright Bill. He'll never learn to fly without Roz and Fink's help. Bright Bill tells Roz her task is done, to which we see a visual effect showing that the task has been cancelled, but Roz still insists on helping Bright Bill. This is Paddler, a beaver. He's taken notice of Roz and fashions her a new leg to help her get around. This, of course, serves as a visual representation of the change Roz is undergoing, but aside from that, the design is just cool, to be honest. Through the power of a training montage, Bright Bill learns to fly. A goose named Longneck offers to have Bright Bill be a part of his migration group, and mentions how Bright Bill was never supposed to reach this point. Due to him being a runt, Bright Bill wasn't expected to ever be capable of migrating, but now it seems like a possibility that he might be able to actually make the journey. And this was only because of Roz. This attracts the attention of everyone on the island. They finally seem to have some sort of respect for her. Bright Bill is finally made aware of the fact that he wouldn't even be alive if it weren't for Roz. But just as he's told this, it's time to leave. And I can't even begin to describe the following scene. It is one of the most powerful moments in any movie I've ever seen, not just animated ones. Even after several viewings, it somehow manages to cause me to tear up. The characters believing this is their final goodbye gives this scene incredible emotional weight. The music is beautiful, and the way it grows slowly pulls the viewer into this moment. And just when it seems like it's over, Roz's task is accomplished with nothing left tying her down, she breaks out into a full sprint after Bright Bill. The music crescendos as Bright Bill and Roz share one last look before he leaves. This is genuinely a perfect scene. Some of the best movies I've ever watched don't have a single moment that reach heights like this, let alone animated kids movies. And to think this isn't even close to the end of the film. Winter begins and Roz activates her return transmitter. We then cut to Bright Bill's migration, and ever since I first saw this film, this shot stuck in my mind. In chapter 63 of the book, Bright Bill mentions buildings being completely immersed in water, and in chapter 58, the animals have a conversation about how the world is changing. They recount the effects of climate change, even if they don't know exactly what's causing it. The movie doesn't really touch on these themes aside from this one shot though, which is unfortunate. Generally, I don't consider either the book or the movie to be superior to the other. Both are amazing in their own ways, but chapter 58's conversations being cut is unfortunate. It adds yet another layer to nature. It is beautiful, it is cruel, but it's also resilient, which is going to be necessary if the animals on the island want to survive the winter. Roz decides to turn off her return transmitter because she wants to stay to make sure Bright Bill returns safely. She finds Fink in the nest and he explains to her that the winter is the worst he's ever seen. Immediately after hearing that the other animals are in danger, she springs into action to save as many as possible. This montage is beautiful and it's yet another example of the film perfectly balancing comedy and drama. Fink makes a joke about one of the animals already being dead after it insults him, but later on, him and Roz actually are too late in saving someone. Also important to note is that throughout this entire montage, Roz is glowing yellow. This is the color she glows whenever she is low on power and needs to conserve energy, but she still does not stop until everyone is safe, even the bear that attacked her in the opening. Unfortunately, as Fink brings out, when you put a bunch of predators and their food supply in the same room, there's going to be problems. However, after a rousing speech by Fink, Roz suggests a truce so that everyone can survive to see next spring, while also delivering the only line spoken in the initial trailer.
But sometimes, to survive, we must become more than we were programmed to be.
The animals all agree to the truce, as Roz shuts down for the winter. Bright Bill returns, but before he can speak to Roz, a ship arrives to pick her up. She initially agrees to go with Vantra, a robot collection unit, but after Fink calls out to her, she escapes. Since everyone owes their lives to Roz, they fight off the robots to protect her. They defeat the robots, but a massive fire breaks out and Roz is brought on the ship. Roz has her memories taken from her, but as the ship is leaving, the geese attack. Brightbill breaks his wing entering the ship, but finds Roz powered off. This shot seems to call back to a certain picture in the book, but the context surrounding it is completely different. Roz should have had her memories taken, but miraculously, she's powered on with her memories still intact. You could simply attribute this to the power of love or something like that, or perhaps it's a result of her rewriting her code as she mentioned previously. Roz and Brightbill manage to defeat Vantra, but she says they'll keep coming until they have her. The ship is crashing as well, and Brightbill's broken his wing. Roz rips out her power core and puts Brightbill there in order to protect him from the fall. This is yet another gorgeous scene, and is another height most films cannot reach. An aspect of the film I've only briefly mentioned up to this point is the damage Roz sustains throughout the story. She loses a leg, sustains damage to her core, and is dented and scratched all over. In the book, it's explicitly stated that Rosm units are designed to maintain their physical cleanliness. This is reflected in this shot of Roz wiping some dirt off her torso in the opening. In accomplishing her task and caring for Brightbill, she puts Brightbill's needs above her own though. She sacrifices her perceived purpose for the sake of another's well-being. In doing so, she lives for more than herself and brings peace to all those around her. And the more she gives of herself, the greater the toll on her body. Until this scene in which it culminates with her giving her very core. It serves as a physical representation of her sacrifice and is an excellent example of visual storytelling. After seeing the destruction that the island has undergone, Roz decides it would be best for her to leave for now. She promises to return someday though. 1 year later, and the animals are still benefiting from Roz's contributions. She brought peace to the island. Everyone came together to protect her, and that unity stuck around after she left. During his migration, Brightbill visits her. While he's initially apprehensive, this line,
But you can call me Roz.
makes it clear that Roz still remembers him. And Fink assures us that Roz is coming up with a plan to return home, and a Rosm always completes its task. This ending is completely different from the one presented in the book, which was more open-ended. This was done in order to give the film a sense of finality in case a sequel wasn't greenlit. After the critical and financial success of the film though, a sequel has been confirmed by DreamWorks. I haven't read the second book yet, but that is definitely something I'd like to do before the sequel releases. This year hasn't been the best year ever for film, but so far The Wild Robot is my favorite 2024 movie, and it's not particularly close. It's beautiful, funny, heartfelt, and powerful. It captures the essence of nature and the wilderness incredibly well and touches on complicated themes like survival and parenthood, while still not losing the interest of a younger audience. I saw this movie opening weekend, and as with any animated kids film, if you go on opening weekend, the theater is full of children. And from what I could tell, the film seemed to be a hit with kids and parents alike. The audience gasped and laughed, and during intense moments fell silent. I'll always be partial toward animated films, but the effect that this movie has had on audiences everywhere is undeniable. Everyone I've spoken to has praised both the film's profound nature and beauty. I am, of course, excited for the sequel to come, but more than that, I'm excited for future DreamWorks projects. They've been my favorite Western animation studio since I was a kid, and they played an instrumental role in my childhood. I follow them through the ups and downs, and I can't wait to see whatever it is they do next.